morning sun cast long shadows across the courtyard of Buckingham Palace as Queen Camilla made her way through the grand corridors. She had always been particular about protocol and tradition, especially when it came to the behavior of the royal staff. Today, however, something had caught her attention that made her blood boil with indignation. Earlier that week, she had noticed subtle changes in the demeanor of one particular royal guard, James Morrison. He was a tall, stern-faced man in his early 30s who had served the royal family for nearly 8 years. His record had been impeccable until recently, when small infractions began to surface like cracks in a perfect facade. It started with minor things that most people would overlook. James had been arriving to his post exactly on time, rather than the customary 15 minutes early. His uniform, while still pristine, lacked the razor-sharp creases that had once distinguished him from his colleagues. Most concerning of all, Queen Camilla had observed him checking his mobile phone during duty hours, a strict violation of royal protocol. The Queen Consort had initially attributed these lapses to personal stress or fatigue. After all, the guards worked long hours and maintained an almost inhuman level of discipline. However, when she learned from other staff members that James had been seen laughing and joking with tourists during his ceremonial duties, she knew immediate action was required. Royal guards were expected to maintain absolute stoicism and professionalism at all times. They were living symbols of British tradition and royal dignity. Any deviation from these standards reflected poorly not just on the individual guard, but on the entire institution of the monarchy itself. Queen Camilla had spent years earning her place within the royal family. Facing countless challenges and public scrutiny, she understood better than most how important it was to maintain the highest standards of conduct. Every action, every gesture, every moment was scrutinized by the public and the media. There was no room for casual behavior or relaxed standards. As she walked through the palace that morning, Queen Camilla's mind was focused on addressing the situation directly. She believed in handling matters personally when they concerned the integrity of royal protocol. Her approach had always been firm but fair, and she expected nothing less than complete professionalism from everyone in service to the crown. The corridors echoed with the soft sound of her footsteps as she made her way toward the main entrance, where James would be stationed for the morning shift. She had decided that a direct conversation was necessary to address these behavioral issues before they escalated further or influenced other members of the guard. Queen Camilla paused for a moment before the large mirrors in the hallway, adjusting her jacket and ensuring her appearance was perfect. She understood that when she addressed a member of the royal staff, she was not just speaking as an individual, but as a representative of centuries of royal tradition and expectation. The weight of responsibility sat heavily on her shoulders as she prepared for what would undoubtedly be an uncomfortable but necessary conversation. She had no intention of being harsh or unkind, but she was determined to make it clear that the standards of royal service were non-negotiable, and that any further lapses in protocol would have serious consequences for James's future with the royal household. Queen Camilla approached the main entrance with measured steps, her expression composed but determined. James Morrison stood at his post, his red tunic immaculate and his tall bearskin hat perfectly positioned. To any casual observer, he appeared to be the picture of royal guard perfection. But Queen Camilla's trained eye immediately noticed the subtle signs of his recent decline in standards. His posture, while still upright, lacked the rigid precision she had come to expect. His eyes, which should have been fixed straight ahead in unwavering focus, occasionally darted toward the groups of tourists gathering outside the palace gates. Most tellingly, she could see the slight bulge in his uniform pocket where his mobile phone was hidden, a clear violation of regulations. Taking a deep breath, Queen Camilla decided to address the situation immediately. She approached James with the authority that came naturally to her position, but also with the diplomatic skills she had developed over years of public service. "Guard Morrison," she said in a clear, firm voice that carried the weight of royal authority, "I need to speak with you regarding your recent conduct." James immediately snapped to an even more rigid attention, his eyes widening slightly as he realized he was being addressed directly by the Queen Consort. Such direct communication between royalty and individual guards was extremely rare, and usually indicated serious matters. "Your Majesty," James replied, his voice slightly strained as he maintained his formal posture while trying to process why Queen Camilla was speaking to him personally. Queen Camilla's tone remained measured but serious as she continued. I have observed several concerning changes in your behavior over the past week. Your punctuality has become merely adequate rather than exemplary. Your attention to detail in uniform presentation has diminished, and most concerning of all, you have been seen using personal electronic devices while on duty. The color drained from James's face as he realized that his recent lapses had been noticed and documented. He had thought he was being discreet with his minor rule violations, never imagining that Queen Camilla herself was monitoring his conduct. I have also received reports, Queen Camilla continued, that you have been engaging in casual conversation and even laughter with tourists during ceremonial duties. This behavior is completely unacceptable and represents a serious breach of protocol. James opened his mouth as if to speak, perhaps to offer an explanation or apology, but Queen Camilla raised her hand slightly to indicate that she was not finished addressing the matter. The role of a royal guard is not merely ceremonial, she explained, her voice taking on an educational tone. You are a living symbol of British tradition, royal dignity, and the continuity of our constitutional monarchy. Every moment you are in uniform, every gesture you make, every expression on your face is observed and interpreted by the public. The weight of her words seemed to press down on James's shoulders as he began to fully understand the gravity of his recent behavior. He had been treating his position too casually, forgetting that his role extended far beyond simply standing at his post. Queen Camilla's expression softened slightly, but her tone remained serious. I understand that maintaining such high standards continuously can be challenging, but it is precisely this level of dedication and professionalism that distinguishes the Royal Guard from any other security force in the world. James Morrison felt his heart racing as Queen Camilla's words sank in. He had served with distinction for nearly 8 years, earning commendations and respect from his fellow guards. The realization that he had disappointed not just his superiors, but the Queen Consort herself, filled him with a mixture of shame and anxiety. Your Majesty, James finally managed to speak, his voice carefully controlled despite his inner turmoil. I acknowledge that my conduct has fallen below the standards expected of a royal guard. There is no excuse for my behavior. Queen Camilla studied his face carefully, searching for signs of genuine remorse and understanding. She had dealt with many staff members over the years and had developed a keen ability to distinguish between those who were truly committed to improvement and those who simply wanted to avoid consequences. I appreciate your acknowledgement. Guard Morrison, she replied. However, I need to understand what has caused this decline in your performance. Is there something in your personal life that has been affecting your ability to maintain proper standards? James hesitated for a moment, clearly struggling with whether to share personal information with Queen Camilla. The formal protocols of royal service didn't typically include personal discussions between royalty and individual staff members, but her direct question seemed to invite honesty. My wife recently gave birth to our first child, Your Majesty, James admitted quietly. She's been having difficulty with the recovery, and our son has been having health issues that require frequent medical appointments. I've been distracted and exhausted, but I realize that's no excuse for compromising my duties. Queen Camilla's expression softened noticeably at this revelation. As a mother and grandmother herself, she understood the overwhelming nature of new parenthood and the stress that came with a child's health concerns. However, she also knew that personal circumstances, while understandable, could not be allowed to compromise royal protocol. I'm sorry to hear about your family's challenges, she said with genuine sympathy. Becoming a parent is one of life's most significant transitions, and when complicated by health concerns, it can be overwhelming. James looked surprised by the warmth in her voice. Having expected only criticism and potential disciplinary action, Queen Camilla's ability to balance authority with compassion was one of her most valuable qualities as a member of the royal family. However, Queen Camilla continued, her tone becoming more serious again, you must understand that your personal circumstances, while deserving of sympathy, cannot be allowed to affect your professional responsibilities. The Royal Guard position requires absolute dedication, and the public trust depends on maintaining consistent standards regardless of personal challenges. She paused for a moment, considering her next words carefully. The question now is whether you believe you can recommit to the level of excellence required for this position. or whether you need to consider a transfer to duties that might be more compatible with your current life circumstances. James straightened his shoulders, understanding that Queen Camilla was offering him a choice rather than simply delivering punishment. This was his opportunity to demonstrate his commitment to his role and to the royal family he had sworn to serve. Your Majesty, I am fully committed to returning to the highest standards of service, James declared with renewed determination. My family situation has been challenging, but it has also reminded me of how important it is to honor the trust that has been placed in me. I request the opportunity to prove that I can meet every expectation of my position. Queen Camilla nodded approvingly at his response, but her expression remained serious as she prepared to outline the conditions of his continued service. Queen Camilla was about to respond to James's commitment when the sound of familiar footsteps echoed through the palace corridor behind her. She recognized the measured, authoritative gait immediately, and a slight change in her posture indicated that she knew who was approaching even before turning around. King Charles III emerged from the shadowed corridor, his presence immediately commanding attention and respect. He had been conducting his morning review of palace security arrangements when he noticed Queen Camilla engaged in what appeared to be a serious conversation with one of the guards. His curiosity, combined with his natural concern for palace protocol, had drawn him to investigate the situation. The king's appearance transformed the already formal encounter into something far more significant. James Morrison felt his breath catch in his throat as he realized he was now facing both the king and queen consort simultaneously, a situation that was virtually unprecedented in his 8 years of service. Camilla, King Charles said with a questioning tone, his voice carrying the warmth of their personal relationship, while maintaining the dignity appropriate to the public setting. Is everything proceeding satisfactorily here? Queen Camilla turned to face her husband, her expression carefully composed. She understood that King Charles was not questioning her authority to address staff matters, but rather ensuring that any significant issues were handled with his knowledge and support. Charles, I was addressing some protocol concerns with Guard Morrison, she replied diplomatically. We were discussing the importance of maintaining consistent standards of service and his commitment to meeting those expectations. King Charles studied James carefully, his experienced eyes taking in every detail of the guard's appearance and demeanor. As someone who had spent his entire life within the royal system, he possessed an almost supernatural ability to assess situations and people quickly and accurately. Guard Morrison, King Charles addressed James directly, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of royal authority. How long have you been in service to the crown? Nearly 8 years, Your Majesty, James replied, his voice steady despite the extraordinary nature of the situation. I have served with honor and dedication throughout my tenure. King Charles nodded thoughtfully. 8 years is a significant commitment, and your service record has been exemplary until recently. Queen Camilla has informed me of some concerns regarding your recent performance. The fact that King Charles was aware of the situation indicated to James that this matter had been discussed at the highest levels of the royal household, making it clear that his recent lapses had not gone unnoticed by the most senior members of the royal family. Your Majesty, I take full responsibility for my recent shortcomings, James said with genuine conviction. I have assured Queen Camilla of my complete commitment to returning to the highest standards of service. King Charles exchanged a meaningful look with Queen Camilla, a silent communication that spoke to their partnership in both personal and official matters. They had developed an effective working relationship that allowed them to handle palace matters with unified authority, while respecting each other's individual strengths and perspectives. Guard Morrison, King Charles continued, the role you have accepted is one of tremendous responsibility and honor. You stand not just as a protector of this palace, but as a guardian of traditions that stretch back through centuries of British history. James listened intently, understanding that he was receiving instruction from the sovereign himself about the deeper meaning and significance of his position. Every day, thousands of people from around the world visit this palace, King Charles explained. Many of them may never see the royal family directly, but they will see you. In that moment, you represent everything they believe about British tradition, royal dignity, and the continuity of our constitutional system. The king's words carried a weight that went beyond mere job performance, touching on the broader cultural and historical significance of the Royal Guard's role in British society. King Charles's presence had elevated the conversation to a level that James Morrison could never have anticipated when he began his shift that morning. The guard found himself at the center of a moment that would likely be remembered and discussed throughout the palace for years to come. "Your Majesty," James said, gathering his courage to address the king directly. "I want to explain the circumstances that led to my recent lapses not as an excuse, but so you understand that my commitment to the crown remains absolute." King Charles nodded encouragingly, recognizing that James was demonstrating the kind of honesty and directness that he valued in those who serve the royal household. "Please continue." James took a deep breath before continuing. "My wife and I recently welcomed our first child, but both she and our son have experienced health complications that have required extensive medical care and attention. The stress and exhaustion have affected my focus, but I now understand that I allowed personal circumstances to compromise my professional obligations." Queen Camilla watched King Charles's reaction carefully, knowing that his response would set the tone for how this situation would be resolved. She had already been moved by James's honesty about his family situation, but she respected her husband's judgment in these matters. King Charles's expression showed a mixture of understanding and concern. As a father and grandfather himself, he was acutely aware of the challenges that came with parenthood, especially when complicated by health issues. However, he also understood the absolute necessity of maintaining royal protocols without exception. "Guard Morrison, your honesty is commendable, and your family situation deserves our sympathy and support," King Charles said thoughtfully. "However, you must understand that the responsibilities you have accepted in service to the crown cannot be diminished by personal circumstances, no matter how challenging they may be." James nodded solemnly, understanding that King Charles was expressing both compassion and the unchangeable reality of his professional obligations. "The question before us now," King Charles continued, "is how we can ensure that you have the support you need to fulfill your duties while also addressing your family's needs." This response surprised both James and Queen Camilla, as it suggested that King Charles was considering solutions rather than simply addressing the breach of protocol. The king's approach demonstrated his understanding that loyal, experienced staff members were valuable assets who deserve support during difficult times. "Your Majesty," James said with growing confidence, "I believe I can meet every requirement of my position. My family situation has actually reinforced my appreciation for the stability and honor that comes with serving the crown. I request only the opportunity to prove that I can return to the exemplary standards I maintained for my first 7 years of service." King Charles exchanged another meaningful look with Queen Camilla, and she gave a subtle nod that indicated her agreement with James's request for a second chance. "Very well. Guard Morrison," King Charles said with authority, "you will be given the opportunity to demonstrate your renewed commitment to excellence. However, this opportunity comes with specific conditions that must be met without exception." James straightened to full attention, prepared to accept whatever requirements the king deemed necessary. "First, your performance will be monitored closely for the next 3 months. Any deviation from perfect protocol will result in immediate reassignment to duties outside the palace. Second, you will participate in a refresher training program to ensure you fully understand current expectations. Third, you will serve as a mentor to new guards, as teaching others often reinforces our own understanding of proper standards." The conditions were demanding but fair, and James recognized that King Charles was offering him a path to redemption rather than punishment. "Your Majesty, I accept these conditions gratefully and pledge to exceed every expectation." The conversation had reached a crucial turning point, and James Morrison felt a profound sense of relief mixed with renewed determination. King Charles's decision to offer him a path to redemption rather than immediate dismissal demonstrated both wisdom and compassion that reinforced James's respect for the royal family. Queen Camilla observed the interaction with satisfaction, noting how King Charles had handled the situation with exactly the right balance of authority and understanding. Their partnership in addressing palace matters had evolved over the years into an effective system that served the institution well. "Guard Morrison," Queen Camilla interjected, "I want to add one additional element to your rehabilitation program. You will meet with me personally once each week for the next month to discuss your progress and any challenges you may be facing. This announcement surprised both James and King Charles, as such direct ongoing contact between Queen Camilla and an individual guard was highly unusual. However, her proposal demonstrated her personal commitment to ensuring that James succeeded in meeting the new expectations. "Your Majesty," James responded with genuine gratitude, "I am honored by your personal attention to my development, and I will not disappoint your confidence in me." King Charles smiled approvingly at his wife's initiative, recognizing that her hands-on approach would provide additional support for James, while also ensuring that the situation was monitored at the highest level. "There is one more matter we must address," King Charles said, his tone becoming more serious again. "Your family situation, while understandable, raises questions about whether your current position is sustainable, given your new responsibilities as a father." James felt his heart sink slightly, worried that despite the opportunity he was being given, his family circumstances might still result in a transfer away from the prestigious palace position he had worked so hard to achieve. "However," King Charles continued, "the royal household has resources available to support staff members facing personal challenges. We will arrange for additional healthcare support for your wife and child, and we will also provide access to childcare services that will allow you to fulfill your duties without constant worry about your family's well-being." The unexpected generosity of this offer left James momentarily speechless. He had never imagined that the royal family would provide such personal support to help him balance his professional and family obligations. "Your Majesty, I cannot adequately express my gratitude for such extraordinary consideration," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "This support will make all the difference in my ability to serve with complete dedication." Queen Camilla smiled warmly at James's response, pleased that the resolution of this situation would strengthen rather than weaken the palace's relationship with a valued staff member. The royal household succeeds when all of its members can perform their duties without being compromised by circumstances beyond their control, King Charles explained. Investing in the well-being of loyal staff members is not charity, but rather sound management that benefits everyone. James began to understand that his situation was being viewed not as a burden to be tolerated, but as an opportunity to demonstrate the royal family's commitment to supporting those who serve them faithfully. "Now," Queen Camilla said, returning to the practical matters at hand, "I expect to see immediate improvement in all aspects of your performance, beginning with this very shift. Your refresher training will begin tomorrow morning, and our first weekly meeting will be scheduled for next Tuesday." The specific timeline and expectations made it clear that James's rehabilitation would begin immediately and would be monitored closely from the very beginning. 3 months later, James Morrison stood at his post with a bearing and precision that exceeded even his original standards from 8 years earlier. The comprehensive rehabilitation program had not only restored his previous level of performance, but had actually elevated him to new heights of excellence and understanding. The weekly meetings with Queen Camilla had proven invaluable, providing him with insights into royal protocol and expectations that he had never fully grasped during his earlier years of service. These conversations had transformed his understanding of his role from simply following rules to truly embodying the principles and traditions that the Royal Guard represented. The refresher training had been rigorous and comprehensive, covering not only the technical aspects of his duties, but also the historical and cultural significance of his position. James had approached this training with the enthusiasm of someone who truly appreciated the second chance he had been given. Most importantly, the family support provided by the royal household had eliminated the stress and distractions that had contributed to his earlier decline in performance. His wife had received excellent medical care and had made a complete recovery, while their son's health issues had been successfully addressed through access to specialist pediatric care. The child care services had allowed James to focus completely on his duties during working hours, knowing that his family was safe and well cared for. This peace of mind had restored his ability to maintain the absolute concentration that his position required. King Charles and Queen Camilla had observed James's transformation with satisfaction, noting that he had not only met but exceeded every expectation they had established. His performance had become so exemplary that he was now being used as an example for new guards entering the service. The mentoring role that King Charles had assigned to James had proven beneficial for everyone involved. Teaching new guards had reinforced James's own understanding of proper protocols while also providing him with leadership experience that would serve him well in future advancement opportunities. Queen Camilla made a point of acknowledging James's success during her regular walks through the palace, offering subtle nods of approval that indicated her continued satisfaction with his performance. These small gestures meant more to James than any formal commendation could have. The incident had become a powerful example within the royal household of how challenging situations could be resolved through a combination of firm standards, compassionate understanding, and practical support. Other staff members had taken note of how the royal family had handled James's situation, increasing their own loyalty and commitment to the institution. James often reflected on the morning when Queen Camilla had confronted him about his declining performance and how King Charles's unexpected arrival had transformed a potentially career-ending situation into an opportunity for growth and development. He understood now that the royal family's decision to invest in his rehabilitation rather than simply replacing him had been based on their recognition of his fundamental loyalty and potential for excellence. The experience had taught him valuable lessons about responsibility, dedication, and the importance of seeking help when facing personal challenges. As he stood at his post, James Morrison embodied everything that a royal guard should represent: unwavering dedication, impeccable standards, and deep respect for the traditions he was sworn to protect. His journey from crisis to redemption had made him not just a better guard, but a better person, and his continued service stood as testament to the wisdom and compassion of the royal family he served with such pride and distinction.